Pittsburgh woman will spend the next 12 years in prison for forcing members of her church to work certain jobs. Prosecutors say 57-year-old Tracie Dickey also pocketed members' money and directed them to defraud various hotels. A federal judge in Chicago sentenced her on Monday. Dickey was a self-appointed bishop of Deliverance Tabernacle Ministries. That's an organization she founded that proclaimed to offer faith-based services.
Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. Now I haven't done true crime in a good while, so I thought I would go back to my roots and focus on that for a little bit. Now this is a story of Pastor Tracie Dickey. I don't know if any of y'all are aware of her. I wasn't. I just happened to stumble upon this on American Trap Queens. This is the story of Pastor Tracie Dickey. Pastor Tracie Dickey was born on June 9, 1963 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She recruited and abused women in her ministry, then perpetrated a years-long fraud operating fake travel agency. As early as 2009, Tracie Dickey of Deliverance Tabernacle Ministries International would groom vulnerable victims and force them to disavow their families, live in the church, and work multiple full-time jobs. The victims would then give Tracie all their wages, which she would keep for herself. She required multiple victims to find employment at Hyatt hotels, where she forced them to falsify reservation bookings, thereby fraudulently misdirecting kickbacks to Tracie's own travel company. If someone disobeyed her, she would threaten them with violence and require them to homelessness until she considered them redeemable. Tracie started out as a kind, motherly figure in whom the young women she recruited would confide in. Once they trusted her, the prosecution said the abuse would begin. On July 26, 2016, the government indicted her on 3 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of obtaining forced labor, though the government dropped 2 counts of wire fraud as part of the Hyatt Hotel's kickback scheme. Failure to obey Tracie was defying God, physical and spiritual harm. Tracie, the defendant, slowly and systematically isolated her followers, cutting off the contact with family and friends until their whole world was her ministry, and her good graces were only measure of worth. Defiance, no matter how small, was met with serious consequences, including being slapped, hit, punched, choked, or being left homeless or without God. Once she had attained full control of her followers, she demanded and received all access to their everyday work and pay. Tracie reinforced her teachings by requiring the women to live together, by using group dynamics and fear to shame those who failed to comply, and then by threatening the basic stability of their lives, restricting food, sleep, and even a place to stay. She held the women in a state of servitude. Prosecutors said some women described being forced to live without water or electricity and even being homeless to comply with Tracie Dickey's demands. As part of the scheme that led to the federal charges against her, she forced her followers, all young women, to get jobs at hotel desk clerks. She even relocated most of her church to Orlando, where it would be easy to get that kind of work. Then it continued. Tracie created a travel agency under her own name, World Ambassador Travel. She taught the women in her church how to attribute reservations in the hotels where they worked so that her agency would get commission, even though there were no actual bookings. Unlike many other con artists and fraudsters, Tracie didn't simply cheat others out of their money through some sort of investment scheme or ordinary fraud. She forced them to work and then took every dollar of their earnings for her own benefit. She did so not at gunpoint, but instead by means more insidious and cruel, by repeated physical and psychological abuse that left her victims apologizing to her even when they were forced to flee her church to preserve their own lives. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Chicago said that Tracie used the proceeds of her scheme on travel to fine hotels, rented a lavish villa, and spent thousands on personal expenses such as beauty treatments. During an FBI search at the villa, investigators discovered thousands of dollars worth of items of new designer clothing still with the tags on them. In sentencing documents, the government noted that even while in custody, Tracie was continuing to perpetrate fraud, creating other church websites through which people would donate. She had more than $35,000 in her inmate account. Even after trial, some of her followers still wrote letters in support of her, arguing that she had been wrongfully convicted. Elder Maisie Stoner of Sheridan wrote to the court that Tracie had been her pastor for more than 21 years. She will also delay her trial date by continuing firing and hiring her attorneys. She was on her third attorney when the district court scheduled her first trial date for April 23, 2018. This gave the defense almost a full year to prepare, but 2 months before the trial, she motioned for a new counsel. She wanted to hire 2 attorneys, with the caveat that the trial wouldn't be continued because of the change. The court granted the motion to retain counsel. Only a few weeks later, her new counsel moved to withdraw, and the court reappointed her prior attorney. The district court continued the trial over the government's objection to September 4, 2018, rearranging its schedule to accommodate Tracie. The court warned her that the new trial date was firm and it would not grant another continuance. But still, her attorney asked for another continuance less than a month before the trial began. She said that Tracie had informed her of witnesses warranting further investigation. The district court was skeptical, noting that Tracie had known about these witnesses all along and had clearly waited until the 11th hour to inform her attorney about them. It was also an emotional burden on the testifying victims. Nonetheless, the court continued the trial a second time to October 9, 2018. Her trial was ultimately scheduled for February 4, 2019. She showed little remorse. Rather, she explained that her words, actions, or intentions were incorrectly perceived or misconstrued by others. The testifying victims' names were redacted from this report. Their first and last name initials are in place of their names. Victims AA, SW, LH, and KH again testified that the hearing about their harrowing experiences with Tracie Dickey. Victim SW equated that her decade at Deliverance Tabernacle Ministries International to psychological bondage that afflicted her anxiety and paranoia. As a result, she suffers from panic attacks, thoughts of the S word, and the constant feeling of being burdened by her past. Victim AA compared DTM to Heaven's Gate, a cult that led its members to mass S word, and Tracie to the cult leader Jim Jones. Victim KH described her own psychological scars, and victim LH recounted how her knees became permanently damaged from the miles she had to walk after Tracie took her car as punishment. Tracie Dickey was sentenced to 144 months imprisonment on each count to run concurrently and 3 years probation. 144 months is 12 years. She was also ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $1.14 million, including the figure of $12,714 for the cost of each victim's future mental health treatment. Through it all, Tracie still has followers that sends her money and are standing by her side. Wow, talk about master of brainwashing. Okay, y'all. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Oh, and one more thing. That's another reason why folks say what they say about the church. I grew up in the church, you know what I'm saying? And my pastor, he's legit. But you do have a lot of pastors, especially this day and age, that's with that BS. And that's why a lot of people don't want to come to church or, donate and give their money to the church because of stuff like this. Okay, y'all. Thank you.